Welcome, my name is Rene Neumann, and over the next few minutes would I like to give you a product update about our new Nodegrid 5.6 release. With every release, we at ZP Systems try to reduce the complexity for our customers. With the Nodegrid 5.6 release, we specifically address needs around the security, the day-to-day operations of your Nodegrid appliances, as well as when you use our Nodegrid appliances as an edge compute solution. We're going to look at each of these in a little bit more detail, but we will primarily focus on the deployment aspect and the edge computing aspect, and we'll dive deeper into those features which were introduced in the Nodegrid 5.6 release. The deployment of a new appliance, may that be in your data center or may that be an entirely new bench device or location, is always a quite challenging time. While we fully support our customers on the automation journey to make that process easier and more straightforward, do we realize that many of our customers still need to do these tasks manually. Now, if you do those things manually, who hasn't done a configuration change and then just realized a second later that they forgot something to do critical before that, and they might have locked themselves out, brought in network interface down, only to realize now they don't have access to it. So to simplify that process, to take the anxiety out of these stressful times in their own right, we came up with a couple of features which we introduced in Nodegrid 5.6. One of these features is our global APN database, which dramatically simplifies the deployment of new LTE connections out in your branch locations. A second feature which we introduced specifically in Nodegrid 5.6 is our configuration staging capabilities, which allows you to automatically roll back from a change which might have caused a connectivity loss, like pushing a wrong firewall configuration or bringing an interface down. One of the challenges around deploying your branch solution, specifically with an LTE connection, is the management of the APN details. The APN details are specified by the ISP, which provides you with your data SIM. They typically contain something like a username, potentially a password, as well as the access point name. These details need to match to your ISP provider. What we found over time is that a lot of our customers get the data SIMs, but they might not necessarily be 100% sure about the APN details, specifically as they can change within a country, and dependent on the region where you deploy your appliance, they might be slightly different. What we are now providing with Nodegrid 5.6 is a global APN database, allowing a customer just to slot in a SIM, boot up the device, configure the LTE connection, and have automatically the Nodegrid appliance detect the right APN settings for your data SIM, really simplifying the deployment of any of your branch sites and reducing at least one of the headaches which you might have. Besides configuring your LTE and your APN details in your branch locations, there are many other settings which you need to configure. These range from firewall settings to VPN settings, configuring the right network interfaces, to many other items. Some of these items or many of these steps actually are dependent on each other, and it's important that you roll them out into the right order. We fully support our customers on the automation journey to hopefully limit any errors in that configuration. But in case you need to do these manually, the order is quite important. The configuration staging feature takes the anxiety out of this specific part of the setup or configuration change later on. It allows you with an automatic rollback feature, and because of that, it ensures a reliable access to your remote sites. It limits errors and gives you an easy way to recover from errors. The way you do it is before you do any major change to your configuration, you set a recovery point. For from the CLI, you do that with a config start, or in the UI, you can press the start button. Then you perform your changes. If you do not confirm your changes within a specific timeout period, which is by default 30 seconds, the unit will automatically revert back to that save point which you have set before. All the changes which were done are rolled back. The unit is restored to the state it was when you began your configuration. And if you would have pushed a firewall setting, for example, which blocked your access to the device, you will regain that access to the appliance. If you confirm your changes within this specific timeout period, then your changes are permanent and you can move on with your day in confidence that the configuration is valid and that you still have access to the appliance. Both the global APN database, simplifying the deployment of LTE connectivities, as well as the insurance that your configuration provides you with the connectivity you need, enabling you with more resilience, are important in any environment. While they're extremely useful in the branch office, there's a large portion of that required as well in your data center or colo deployments. But really where they come into their own is around edge computing deployments, where the combination of these two combined with our WAN connectivity improvements to enable connectivity of your WAN connectivity to VMs, as well as our new file sharing options allowing virtual machines to talk to different servers, really help you to reduce the complexity around deploying your edge computing nodes. During the deployment of an edge compute node, you will come into situations where your virtual machines require access to a centralized file server. These edge compute nodes can serve many multiple functionalities, starting from running SD-WAN nodes to security nodes to simple file server or Windows systems. So at some point, you really want to share information between these nodes and have a central repository. With Nodegrid 5.6, we have now the capability of utilizing VirtIOFS, which is a localized file system on the hypervisor, which enables virtual machines to have direct access to a file structure which you expose on the Nodegrid OS to the virtual machine. The advantage of VirtIOFS is really its performance. The virtual machine gets near system performance to access the file system. So it's really useful to store a large amount of data, to compute large amount of data within the VM and share them across multiple instances on the same hypervisor. If you rather need to access a remote file system, then there have been for a long time file services like SMB, like NFS, and many others. Most of these have security challenges. One of the newer file systems, which tries to address exactly these security concerns, is the SSH-based SSHFS. And all what you really need is on the client is an SSHFS client, which is available for all common operating systems. The transport protocol is SSH, and you can directly then use that protocol to connect to any of the file system structures which you have on the Nodegrid or even on a remote file server. There's nothing specifically which you need to configure on the server in itself. All what you need to have enabled is SSH and a share which you want to provide to your clients. With Nodegrid 5.6, we utilize our existing IP pass-through functionality to extend from the resilient connection use case, which we had already for the last couple of releases, over to the edge compute use case. Let me first give you a short recap what the existing IP pass-through functionality provided you with. In the traditional branch deployment, most customers will have a modem connection, which provides an MPLS connection, a VDSL connection, or any other form of connectivity, combined maybe with a next-gen firewall configuration. Additionally to that, many customers have a 4G or maybe already a 5G connection available there as well for resilient purposes in case your main internet connection goes out. Our Nodegrids from the service router family all support natively built-in 4G and 5G modems. What you can do then with the devices of our service router family is you can use that 4G, 5G connectivity not only for your out-of-band connectivity, but you can directly natively pass it through to your WAN router, to your next-gen firewall, so that the next-gen firewall or your router can use it as a failover connectivity as well, as if the LTE connection would be natively plugged in and terminated on that device. With Nodegrid 5.6, you can now use the same capability, the same underlying technology for all of your WAN interfaces, not only for your 4G, 5G connectivity, but you can use it for any fiber connection, Ethernet connection, or MPLS VDSL connection, which is physically terminated on the Nodegrid appliance in itself. The setup is exactly the same as it was before. You would go to the interface and enable the feature, and that would pass all the WAN traffic directly into your virtual machine, which then can act as your SD-WAN router, as your next-gen firewall, and provide you with the security and the capabilities of the vendor solution. This greatly enhances the capabilities and the usability of the feature with many different use cases you might see in your edge deployments. As I outlined in the beginning, security is always quite important to us here at ZPE Systems. That not only affects our software releases, but as well our internal processes, as well as our hardware. What we typically do with any major release is we always bring up the major software versions to a current level. For one, we want to keep the solution current and relevant to you as a customer, but most importantly as well, we want to address potential security vulnerabilities. Should you be currently on an LTS version of our Nodegrid, then I would recommend that you're taking a look at those releases, which are constantly updated as well, to address the same security vulnerabilities as we do with any major security update. To close out our review of the Nodegrid 5.6 release, we will go briefly through a full list of the new features. You can find them again in our release notes, and I would strongly recommend that before you do a firmware upgrade, to go through the release notes and clearly bring you up to speed. What are the new features and how to do the firmware upgrade. At this point, I just want to say thank you that you were listening to me for the last couple of minutes. The Nodegrid 5.6.1 release is now available. You can get it through your normal sources. It would be either through our support page or directly from zpcloud.com. And if you want to get more information from us, just go to our webpage, https://www.zpsystems.com.